to the dais. So thank you so much, sir, so for coming down to Visakhapatnam. I also invite our GVL Narasimha Rao Garu, our beloved Rajya Sabha member. Sir, have a seat, sir. So has come to. So now I want to felicitate Jay Shankar ji for taking pains because his flight has been delayed, went to Hyderabad and came back. He has asked for us to continue, and everybody, sir, to your information, everybody stayed here. Nobody had left the venue, sir. Everyone is a fan of yours. So all of us should give a standing ovation to Jay Shankar ji. So, Yeshukant garu, okay. So I request Ashish ji. I request our Vishnu Kumar Raj garu to felicitate Sri Jay Shankar ji. Mandana. I request Ashish ji and Paida Krishnamohan garu to present a bouquet on behalf of the elite of Visakhapatnam. So he's an industry, sir. Jay Shankar is the president of Andhra Chamber of Commerce, sir. I invite Ravindra Reddy, our Visakhapatnam city president, onto the dais. Sir, everyone can take your seat. So Jay Shankar ji, as every one of you know, he doesn't require introduction. Why? Because, sir, the diaspora present before you are very learned people, sir, the learned elite of Visakhapatnam. So we had an interaction. We throw some kind of a light on our policy, and our Vishnu Kumar Raju spoke about the welfare policies of our government. And we have invited questions, sir. We thought of first a speech from your side, then there will be an interaction from every one of them present in the house. So we have invited the questions before, so that it can cut short the time. So we were, all the questions that were asked were very thoughtful, and everyone are following our foreign policy. Tuto. So everyone are following your recent trips also they were mentioning, and what happened in the recent trips also they are mentioning. This is a great thing, sir. Our Visakhapatnam is a very beautiful city on the east coast. It's also called the Peril of Coromandel Coast and the City of Destiny. So though it's far off from Delhi, it's following whatever that is happening in Delhi. That's what I want to say, sir. And the people who are present are well informed and well learned people. So very erudite people. So they've asked several questions. So you speak, sir. Then I'll just okay, sir. Right. So now I open the dais to see Jay Shankar ji, sir.
All my colleagues, dignitaries on the dais, and my dear friends sitting across, first of all, thank you for your patience. Thank you for waiting for me. Today, actually, we got diverted by bad weather. We came all the way to Visakhapatnam. We were just going to land, and weather was bad. We went to Hyderabad. Then we refueled. We came here. So I am really very sorry to keep you all waiting. But still, I want to say what a great pleasure it is to be here. Now, you know, normally wherever you go to a meeting, you will say it's a great pleasure to be there, a very standard thing. But I want to say really it is a great pleasure, because for this reason, say, I have spent most of my life representing India, working in Indian embassies. It is for me now 45 years since I started it. And no community has been more visible for me across the world than the Telugu people. So wherever I have been, and particularly I have long association with our relations with the United States, and I have seen them there, I have seen them in the Gulf, and in fact nowadays when I see even students in different places, I see a lot of people from Andhra. So for me, there is a very, I would say, natural constituency for a foreign minister to come to Andhra. So, for others it is political constituency. For me, it is actually, in a way, an interest constituency as well. So I want to share with you, and I'm really speaking from the heart. I have no, you can see I have no paper in front of me. I'm really actually giving you my thoughts. Uh, as people who have understanding of the world, interest in the world, relatives in the world, what is it you should know about the world today? I think the most important thing you should know about the world today is that their perception of us is changing. Their perception of us is changing because they have seen in the last 8 years such tremendous changes in India that it is for them, it's a very different India. It is Modi's India. Huh? And that is really a very, very big change. So, what is it they see in Modi's India which they did not see before? They see, first of all, a very deep commitment to good governance, to bring about, very, very fundamental social change in this country, to push growth and development in a way in which it has not been pushed before. And the results of that they are beginning to see. Now, the most easy part of that is what we call easy to do business. You are making it easier to do business. So, foreign companies also say, okay, it is today easier to do business in India. Maybe we should be coming in greater numbers. And you can see today there's more foreign investment, there is more foreign collaboration, there is more foreign manufacturing. All of that is happening. But that is only one part of it. There is actually the image of India, the impression of India. How do they look at India as a partner? Now, what is the change, and I'm telling you this by my experience. When COVID happened, I still remember sitting with the Prime Minister. Those days we would do video conferencing with the world. Obviously, travel was not possible. And one of this very, very early meeting, all the world leaders were on the screen. Okay. And there was a briefer. And I would say this should have been just around the lockdown time. So we are talking May, maybe 2020. And at that time, the briefers predicted, these were, international organizations. Have the two shots had what is the perception of the world? So today the world actually respects us as a country which not only looked up much better than the world expected it to do, but during this period also helped the rest of the world. And it's very interesting, if you look even in South America, in Caribbean, okay, these are places far away from India. They are actually close to North America, they're close to Europe, even in Africa, I would say. In many of these places, Indian vaccine reached before the vaccine from North America and Europe did. Completely changed the understanding of what is India capable of. But I'm giving you COVID as one example. I'll give you another example. You all saw what happened in Ukraine. Okay, we had a lot of students. They were very badly stuck in the middle of a war. Really, I mean, they were in towns where every day there was shelling, there was shooting. We were monitoring it from Delhi. We were talking to them on the phone. Now, the kind of effort we made to bring them back, honestly, no other country did. Honestly. And even now, after we did, I've actually had other foreign ministers. The one foreign minister who came and said, in my own country, I told people, you watch what the Indians are doing, then try and do the same thing, because that is like the model. Huh? And if they set the SOP, follow the SOP. But they were actually astonished at the scale of what we did. So this particular country, which is actually it's an important G20 country, he said, with great difficulty we managed 2 planes. He said, how many planes did you do? So I felt a little embarrassed, numbers did not look, we did 90 planes. So the fact that we did 90 planes, got 20,000 people out, unfortunately one student died during this period. He was killed during the shooting. But it was still something the world looked at today, the perception of India today. Again, when I say what is the difference between an India of the last 8 years and the India before. Today that sense is there in the world. These people will look after, they know how to look after their people, they will look after the nationals, they will never let them down, they have their back. And the rest of the world, that, makes them respect us. And that really today has a big impact of, their perception of us. So they have for many years now, for 20 years, people say India IT center. Oh, it has not come now, it has come over many years. Today there's also this perception, India is the pharmacy of the world. There is India, country which looks after its people. India which is capable of mounting these efforts. But I also want to share with you, what is the sense of within India? Again, I'm relating to you what happens in the meetings which I have with other ministers or other politicians, even other media of other countries. Sometimes you may see it also in YouTube and these formats. When I tell them, look, during COVID, we actually ensured, because this was one of the earliest decisions Prime Minister told us in the cabinet. He asked us, how many of you have read the history of the Spanish flu? Okay, everybody had some knowledge, maybe somebody read a book, maybe somebody read articles, somebody Googled. He said, now, do you all remember 100 years ago when Spanish flu came? Millions of people died in India, millions. Okay. If you look at the pictures of that period, you can actually see people lying on the street, and that is a kind of situation. But the important point he made to us was, he said more people died of hunger than they died of the flu. And in my government, in my watch, this will not happen. Not one person will die of hunger. I will do whatever I have to do to ensure that in this period that every family gets, goes to sleep with food in the stomach. Now, if you look at the number, that number, even today, we are still doing Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Anna Yojana. That number is 810 million. And when I go abroad and tell people, Government of India sends food to 810 million people every year, every week, and it has been going on now for 2 years, they cannot even they cannot, it's beyond their imagination. This is like feeding all of America and all of Europe at the same time. It's just something which is, they cannot comprehend. But then if you look at the scale of what we are doing today, and that is one very big difference. Almost every one of these programs, development programs we are doing, it is actually the scale which is so big. It is not that people they had some of these thoughts. If you look at the development program, and actually we are also famous for that. We all know how much leakage there used to be before. That famous story that 100 rupees leaves Delhi, only 15 rupees reaches there. We know this story, but world also knows this story. Actually this was our reputation abroad in the world also. So today when you say it is direct benefit transfer, money is going into 400 million bank accounts. When under Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, Gramin Awas Yojana, almost 115 million beneficiaries are there. So you have 11.5 crore people. Every scheme is actually almost like population of some big country somewhere. That is what the world is seeing. And anybody today who's coming to India, what I hear, they can feel that buzz, they can see that change. They also, of course, it is also feeding through our NRI community as well. So you have, therefore, I would say respect for coming through experience like COVID, respect for looking after people, but today respect for economic growth, for development, for creating a social safety net, and now increasingly respect for our today our manufacturing achievements, what we are able to do in different parts of the economy. And a lot of that actually is because, it could be on one side startups and innovation. It could be, our initiatives, what are called production-linked initiatives, incentives, which have created, today we have become very big manufacturer of smartphones, for example. We were completely importing smartphones earlier. So our economic capabilities are also changing. And then finally, there is today respect for our ability to stand up. That people see, we have had a very difficult situation in the northern border. Okay, the Chinese tried to change the line of actual control 2 years ago, violating agreements that we had. But for 2 years, we have, and we will continue to stand. The fact that we were able to send thousands of troops in very cold weather, very high altitude, keep them there, supply them there, make sure that we are standing up to a national security challenge, and that we will not allow our boundaries or borders or lines of actual control to be changed by another country. I think that is something today the world recognizes, the world respects. So there is also today that sense that there is a different India. But it is something which, for us, these 8 years are the beginning of a journey. A lot has been done, but the dreams which Prime Minister Modi has for this country, they are very big dreams. And in many ways, they are actually the dreams of our young people. When as a person, I can tell you, I travel out a lot in India, abroad, and especially nature of my job is also such, I mix a lot with the younger people. And you can see we have produced increasingly a confident generation. We have today that sense that, we really can sort of re-establish ourselves in the international arena. And a very important part of that is also our cultural confidence. Another 10 days, we will be marking the International Day of Yoga. Okay. It is celebrated around the world. And this year, actually, we have the way we have planned it is, as the sun rises and moves across the world, the celebrations will take place following the sunrise. So for that 24-hour cycle, the celebrations will also go through that period. And I say this to you, what was, it was not that we were not doing yoga before, we were doing it. What has changed is that confidence, that leadership, that projection, that, that Prime Minister had this idea in 2014 that let us get the UN to agree. And we got a unanimous agreement in the United Nations. Every country actually agreed with us, saying that, look, let us celebrate along with India what is a great contribution to global civilization. And I can tell you, in terms of its cultural impact, it's been huge. And it's happening in other areas. Propagation today of Ayurveda, for example. We are pushing it in different parts of the world. And I think particularly after the COVID experience, this desire for, what alternative medicines is more. So I want, therefore, to give you that sense that as people, as a community which is connected with the world, that there is a huge change in the perception of the world about India. It is a change which reflects the enormous progress of the last 8 years. But the more we progress, I think the more the world's expectations of us would be, which is only natural. But we also, from our side, what I want to say is, we also look today at the world as a in a sense, and when we say the world is a family, the idea is we should be doing more with the world. We should be contributing more with the world. Vaccine Maitri is a very good thing, but we also see the world actually as a bigger space for ourselves also. That we would like to see more Indians, Indian talent, Indian skills moving around in the world. We would like to see Indian businesses going around the world. We want to see Indian tourists traveling around the world. So this whole idea that how to support a larger global presence, a larger, the world not just as a marketplace, but the world as a workplace, the world as a living space. And that is why, we are today negotiating with many countries for agreements which will allow our students, our professionals to work. We have made a lot of progress in Europe. We are working on this with Australia. And of course, with the United States, we have a constant dialogue to ensure that the flow of talent and skill between us is very good. So let me finish with one last point. I have painted to you how the world sees us, how do we see them. But finally, what does it come down to? It comes down to people. It comes down to last mile. If you don't do last mile delivery, I can give you a very good speech. Nothing will happen on the ground, or not enough things will happen on the ground. And one of the, again, big areas of reform, and I think each one of you would have experienced it. Think how long it took you 8 years ago to get a passport. And ask yourself today how long it takes you to get a passport. I cannot give you a more accurate indication of what is the difference. That what took 8 months before, probably today takes 8 days, maximum 2 weeks. That, where we had passport centers, our passport centers, it is actually a very, very innovative idea, how to use post offices to actually collect passport application. So, in that sense, it's really minimum government, maximum governance. That you used an existing facility really to build a new layer of service to the people. So that sense of people-centric foreign policy, that people-centric foreign policy starts with easier availability of passports. Attestations are much easier. When you go abroad, especially for workers and people with less resources, there's a fund in case they get into difficulty. When they have problems, as we showed during COVID, even through Vande Bharat mission. Vande Bharat mission, when we actually brought back 70 lakh of our citizens back home, is the largest recorded evacuation history in the history of the world. So the people centrism, finally, there is a vision, there is a strategy, but We are today taking it right down to the people. And the involvement of the people, the facilities to the people, the enabling of the people, this is today also a very important aspect of our foreign policy. And I think many of you would have experienced it yourself. So these were some of my preliminary thoughts. I deliberately chose not to give you a sort of a formal speech, also because I just got off the plane and I thought, okay, let me, whatever was in my mind, in my heart, I should share it with you very, very openly. But I'm sure if you have some questions or issues, I'll be very, very glad to reply. Sure.
Sir, so you can have a seat, sir. You can take your seat. So there are a lot of questions, sir. We have noted down each one of the questions, sir. There's elaborate discussion on all those fronts. So I'll be in brief telling all the questions at a stretch. So you can answer at a stretch. That will be better, sir.
Better if you can ask them to stand up. Yeah, why don't we?
Sir. Okay, sir. So before starting, I have a question to ask. No new questions. So how difficult is for you to wear the shoes of a politician? How the metamorphosis of a diplomat becoming a politician? How far you have become a politician and all? So that's the first question, sir, from my side.
So I'll answer, maybe we'll go question by question. Look, I think how difficult or easy is not for me to judge. It is for other people to judge whether I'm doing well or surviving in politics or not. So how can I answer that? But what I do want to say, diplomats have a training to adapt. Huh? So you go to any country, you do something, you very quickly learn. You watch and you learn. And I cannot watch better people than I have today in the cabinet, starting with the Prime Minister. So they are the best teachers. So I have a great, shall I say, good fortune to be a very diligent student.
Okay, sir. Right. Thank you, sir.
Since Honorable Minister said other people should comment about this, as someone who has seen him speak in Parliament, as someone I am a member of the consultative committee of which he is the chairman, I am always, every time I see him speak, I find myself in utter amazement. How can somebody be so scholarly, so simple, so on the top of everything that he does? So I think he's the best man for the job that he has been chosen by the Honorable Prime Minister. And I think full marks to him, but fuller marks to Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji for reposing faith in someone like him. So I think I'm not looking at him as a politician in a traditional sense, but as a top-class professional, as a top-class minister, he has served this government and the country. He's made us proud.
Can I make one point on this? And I'm sorry we're taking the answer is so long. Look, in our country today, that era where we think that political matters should be left to politicians and it's not our problem, I think that era is behind us. That for me, there's nobody in my family who's remotely political. I mean, no generation, nobody, first cousin, second cousin, nobody at all. But I find, including among my younger relatives, they are very interested today what is happening in the country. They feel they are part of what is happening in the country. And quite honestly, I mean, the reason I came into politics is I felt, okay, I can't just sort of say, okay, I have this view. After this view, my contribution is over. If there's something I can do practically, I should. And I think there is a lesson there for a lot of people, even in the professional, you can be a good doctor, a good lawyer, a good chartered accountant, a good teacher, but you should take an interest in what is happening in your country. It doesn't necessarily mean you join electoral politics. There are many ways of being political. You can be supportive, you can be involved, you can motivate. So I also want to leave that message with you.
Okay, sir. So, because of the paucity of time, so we have around 20 people who spoke, sir. So I'll just briefly tell, sir. So each one, if you answer, it will take long, sir. So
okay, let's take it 4 at a time.
4 at a time. Okay, sir. So if it will be nice that if you only stand and ask. It started with demon Navitia. So he asked a question. There's a paradigm shift in the foreign policy, or being a soft power in command. So he was asking the kind of impact in our mindset by other nations poking at us, and is it time that we started speaking?
Let's do one thing.
Okay.
No, let me make a request. Keep it short.
Short. Keep it
If
short.
you keep
So
it short, I'll give you a long answer.
Hello.
Yeah, I can hear you. Go ahead. Yeah, question.
Sir, I'll keep my question very crisp and simple. Sir, many countries. Yeah. Is it good?
Yeah.
Sir, there are many countries who often comment on our internal matters. And am I audible now?
Yes.
Yeah. So there are many countries who often comment on our internal matters.
Right.
And we often get, we obviously will not like anybody commenting on our internal matters. And I'm sorry, I just.
No, I know what
No,
you're,
we
I know
became
where
a-
you're going with that. Huh?
So,
like,
we should speak regarding China and other things, so the human rights violations that are happening in
Okay,
China
I
and
got
Turkey.
the question.
We should be vocal about all those things that are happening in other countries,
No,
so that
like,
we can assert ourselves.
I feel that we are in a mindset where we don't want others to comment on our internal matters, and we don't instead of. I'm sorry, I just forgot the question that I asked.
Human right violation. We should speak about other countries' human
okay.
right violation.
Next.
We have a defensive policy. We should be aggressive. That's the thing. That is next. Sri Charan. Sri Charan.
I can hear you. You can go ahead.
Prasad, Mike. A brief.
Go ahead.
Really, very good evening, sir. I am very lucky to have the opportunity to ask the question.
Question.
I'll just keep it short.
Yes.
I just wanted to say a few words and then I'll quickly go on to the question.
No few words. Question.
Okay, sir. Yeah. My question to you, sir, is that the question will be a little detailed, but I'll go ahead. Yes. So, in our history, like post-independence, from Panditji, we started as a non-aligned nation. Then, due to geopolitical reasons, we tilted to the Soviet camp. And then in the 90s, post-liberalization, it was a tilt towards both the West and the Soviet. Now we have come to
My friend,
assert
come
our-
to a question, please.
Yes. Yeah, now we have come to assert our independence, as well as we are using our importance to balance both the camps. So do you think in the future also we'll continue to do this, or we'll go for a...
Got it.
So, and third question is Ramakrishna Reddy garu. చెప్పేసేయండి సార్ అక్కడి నుంచి వినపడుతుంది.
Yes.
Namaskar, sir.
Namaskar.
So my question is regarding why is India not exploiting or exploring possibilities of getting crude oil and minerals from South America, especially Venezuelan oil. I've been in oil industry for the past 30 years. And I know that crude is top grade. It takes very less
Okay.
money.
Got it.
to find
Got it.
నెక్స్ట్
One
ఇస్
more.
నెక్స్ట్ క్వశ్చన్ ఇస్ విజయ్ మోహన్ గారు. మీరు ఆడిబుల్ సార్ అక్కడి నుంచి మాట్లాడచ్చు.
Quickly respond to these four questions. One, what you said that the internal affairs of other countries. Ideal, it's not our practice generally. Okay, we don't. I think different countries have different practices, different culture, different history. But I also want to say something. We don't normally do it. Okay, but if I see another country doing it, if you have an opinion about me, one, I have a right to contest that opinion or have an opinion on that opinion. If you are saying something which is untrue, if you are saying something which is very biased, I don't have to be diplomatic and say, okay, I will offend you by replying. So if you actually say something, I have every right to challenge you, and I want to be very clear. I mean, I see myself as foreign minister running a foreign policy which will do exactly that. So I don't go around, having arguments with other countries. But as I said, I will not allow my country to be projected in a wrong manner, my government to be, portrayed in a very biased and inaccurate manner, and my people to be projected in a way in which I don't think it is fair. So a lot of that will happen. The second issue, are we non-aligned? See, non-aligned was of a certain era, when there was America and the American bloc, Soviet bloc. Now, today, the world is much more complicated. There are many more power centers, so it is not just between two blocks you have to choose. There is one thing which we are very clear on. We are one of the, we are today 1.38 billion Indians. We probably by the end of the decade will be the largest, most populous country in the world. We are the fifth largest economy. We will be the third largest economy. We are the oldest civilization. We are a civilizational state with a culture and history and heritage of which, there are not many equals in the world. So a country like ours will be naturally independent. This is our DNA. That, we will, after all, what have we learned from history? We have learned it took us such a hard fight, so many years of struggle to regain our independence. A country, a society which has gone through that will never compromise its independence. It should never compromise its independence. So I can tell you today, when I say that, look, people deal with us with respect, they look at us very differently, a large part of it is also because on a variety of issues, we have taken an independent stance. Countries know that if India takes a position, it is thought through, it is responsible, it is something which reflects the interests of its people. And on this matter, by the way, I want to say we speak for a lot of other countries. I mean, if you look at many issues today, I can tell you that, countries in Asia, in Africa, and Latin America, they actually come and tell us, often saying, look, we wanted to say it, you could say it. So we actually are sort of appreciative of that. On the, South America, especially Venezuela, we do import oil from Mexico. We were importing oil from Venezuela till they came under sanctions. But my understanding, you are an oil person, I am not. I think Venezuelan oil, as my understanding, is heavy crude. I think there are only limited refineries which can use it. So a lot of our natural suppliers are much closer to India, and that is something that obviously we would like to encourage. And one of our problems today is that the market is under a lot of stress, and as a result, partly of the Ukraine conflict, partly of the Iran sanctions, Venezuelan sanctions, petrol prices are going up. So it is something the government is trying to contain. And finally, on arrival visas, we give today e-visas. E-visas are like on arrival. I mean, they're actually better than on arrival because you have given your particulars before. So I think that on arrival, there are still countries which do on arrival visas, but not for all. There was no Asian bloc as such, because many countries, important countries in Asia, don't give on arrival visas. It depends very much on the country. But we are trying to make it easier to bring in tourists so that economy grows, and also to make sure that all of you, when you travel out, your visa processes are as easy as possible.
So next, a couple of questions. It starts with Sampath.
Good evening, sir. My name is Sampath. So my question is, we see that the role of the United Nations is sort of diminishing, and the other forums such as the G20, the SAARC, the BRICS, the Quad are taking more prominence. So which do you see in the next decade or so is going to be crucial for India for its strategic interest, for projecting its power, and also more importantly, act as the new global peacekeeping force?
Good question.
Next, Jayendra.
Good evening, sir. My name is Janendra, and I'll keep it very, very short. With recent conflicts and a lot of things which are happening, SWIFT, UPI, and all of things, there are paradigm shift into geopolitics as well as the power centers of the world. There's a lot of things that are happening. Statement by Mr. Austin day before, and many things. So where do we see the leaders, especially India, in next 1 and 2 decades? And sir, allow me this opportunity to say a heartful thank you for your response to Mr. Blinken some time back. Those kind of response give confidence and pride to all the 1.3 billion people. We also believe that yes, we can also look eye to eye to the people when people like you stand up for us. So thank you so much for that. Thank you.
Next, Commander Sujit Redigar. You are loud enough, sir.
Just follow up to the UN question, sir. I just wanted to know, we have always been snubbed as a country by the P5 because of the veto. And isn't it time that India played its own cards and do something about it on the global stage?
This is a Commander Indian Navy, sir. So we have Sachinarna.
I can make it out looking at it.
Yeah.
Sir, my name is Sachinan, sir. Regarding Pakistan occupied Kashmir, can it be integrated with the India? What is the solution for it, sir? And the second one is veto power in the UNO and a permanent membership in UN Security Council and restructure of UNO. What is the role of India?
Okay.
Should I do four? I can take one or two more also.
Yeah. So next, Dr. Srinivas.
Some of the questions are common.
Dr. Srinivas.
I'll take one more.
Yeah.
Sir, namaste. As you said, India was a very strong cultural powerhouse. Same was China. So we both shared common cultural and traditions. But why over the time, is it because of geopolitics or is it because of some external pressure? We have become bigger enemies, or like now we are actually fighting each other. Common traditions, but now we are fighting each other.
Dr. Rajesh Garu. Okay. Next, Mr. Sterilite Copper. Meera Ramakrishna Reddy garu. Okay.
You asked me Venezuela.
Right. Okay. NGOs playing spoil brat.
Yeah.
Okay. Next, final, Chandra Ruta. Okay, sir.
Okay. So, there were a number of questions on the UN, so I'm putting them all together because they are very common. First of all, I think the question, which to my mind was a very good question asked by the gentleman right at the back. See, the UN has not been very effective, and you could see that. For example, the biggest thing in our lives was COVID, coronavirus. And you ask yourself, okay, in the biggest crisis which any of us remember, what was the role of the UN? And frankly, every country was doing whatever it could do for itself. Some of them cooperated, some of them didn't. But it isn't only corona. There are a whole lot of other issues where today the influence of the UN, the seriousness of the UN actually have been challenged. And part of the reason is because, there are 54 countries in Africa, not one of them is represented, all of Latin America is not represented. Just think to yourself, another few years, the most populous country in the world is not represented in the Security Council. So, then you ask yourself, okay, what kind of body is this? So, it is like something which had a manufacturing date of 1945. Now, everything, you buy, you look at the expiry date also, no? So, you should, somewhere, You cannot say manufacturing date in 1945, it has no expiry date. So at least, okay, don't do expiry date. What do you all do when you have phone? You at least press the refresh button from time to time. Refresh, reset. So there is no, you can't freeze a moment in history and say, okay, this is how it will keep continuing. If you do that, then at some stage the institution will, credibility and effectiveness will come into question. And that is exactly the problem we are having. Now, somebody said we were snubbed, or, why is it we haven't been able to make progress? Because essentially there are vested interests today. Part of the vested interests are the countries who are occupying the seats. Part of it is other people, who are being also encouraged, saying, no, don't let reform, because if you let reform, somebody else will get the benefits. So there is a game which is going on. It is not something which is easy for us because, it involves almost 200 countries of the world. You have to get consensus, you have to work on it. It's a very painstaking, patient, sometimes very frustrating effort. But I can tell you it is something which we will keep doing. Today we are a non-permanent member. And in this 1.5 years when we have been a non-permanent member, in fact, one of Prime Minister's very clear directions is we must leave a mark on the UN. So even those 2 years when we are there, if we leave a very strong impression, then other people will say, okay, this country, maybe we need to have them on a permanent basis. See how much they have contributed. So it is something which will take time, take effort, and I assure you it is something that we are at it. Now, and the remaining part of the question, what happens to G20 and Quad? Yes, I honestly think they're going to become more important, because they will fill the space. That if there is a fire and the fire brigade doesn't come, then the citizens of the street will get together, pick up buckets and do something with that, deal with the fire. They're not going to, say, okay, I give up. So I think you are today seeing this very innovative, groupings, can be 20, can be 4, can be something in between, precisely because the big multilateral system is failing the world. And therefore I see more of that happening. I had a question on POK. Look, our position is very clear. We have always felt it was an area which was under illegal occupation. So we have made our claim and our rights to it very apparent. And we've also, again, one very important characteristic of the Modi government has been, when we have seen other countries operating illegally in illegally occupied territory, we have made our opposition to that very, very clear. That it was not like we kept silent and said, okay, we need to get along with those countries, therefore we will look and overlook a violation of our sovereignty. That is something which we have never done. We have had a very, very clear position that we are completely against third countries operating in what is illegally occupied part of India. On the common traditions, it is, look, there are old civilizations, not many of them have survived. I think India and China are quite that way, quite notable among the old civilizations which have become powerful countries in modern times. But there are areas where we may have similarity or common interest or some ability to work together. It is not that we don't, but to work with somebody, to work with another country, even if I have to work with any of you as a person, there's got to be some understanding between us. And we feel today that we also want good relations with China, but good relations require the other party to be mutually respectful, to be mutually sensitive, to recognize that there is a mutuality of interest. It cannot be a one-way street. So again, a country like ours, it's not just that we should be independent, which we were asked earlier. We also need to be clear, we need to be firm, we need to be confident. If we are challenged, we must have the courage and the fortitude and sometimes the sacrifice. I mean, I think today, people should know really what the Indian army is doing. I mean, the kind of effort they have to make really to be deployed at those, such difficult terrain in Ladakh. But that is the metal, that is our metal, that is how we are tested, and we have to come through that test. So, I am very confident that if between India and China, if mutual interest is recognized, if there is mutual respect, if there is mutual sensitivity, then yes, the relationship can go forward. But if on the other hand, there is a friction on the border, the state of the border will impact the state of the relationship. That is also only natural. And finally, we had a question on immigration. Yes, that gentleman there stood up. Look, I'm making this observation without, I'm not saying it with reference to any particular country. If we are today to really develop a modern society, a caring society for our own people, we must put our people's interest at the core of it, and that is really, again, very much the perspective of the Prime Minister. And when I say we must put our people's interest at the core of it, if we have worked very hard to build a society, I would, it is in our national interest, it is well regulated, it is, that we know who are our citizens, even if we have to give them services. So the idea that we document people, we know who our people are, we secure our boundaries. Securing our boundaries should not even be a debate. After all, don't you have a door in your house? I mean, don't you lock your door? I mean, you do it every day in your lives. So countries also have that interest. So, to me, this is a very false debate. I do not accept that lack of governance, lack of monitoring, lack of documentation is in any way democratic. To me, it is actually misgovernance. It is not something we should be proud of. It is something we need to rectify. And I am very, very glad that under this government, we are actually rectifying it.
Thank you, sir. There are only four other questions, sir. Dr. Hemant Verma, oncologist. Last round, sir. Only four of them.
I hope the government doesn't change in the future. In fact, I'm pretty confident it won't change.
Yes, I'm sure, sir.
Yours is what in my business we call hypothetical question.
Okay. Sarva. Fine.
So my question was, the borders, like the countries which are around India, they are more into expanding towards India, right? And India is focusing on development. If we see, the most important trade routes are in the Indian Ocean, and China is very strategically occupying most of them. And of course, India is also constructing few ports. So as a citizen of India, I would like to know how India is creating any policies or planning on how to protect its borders as well as maintain the business. And
in the sea, meaning the trade routes.
In the trade routes, yes. And one more thing is, it's just an answer for your statement. That is, you told you'd like people to be involved in politics more, right? So there was a time when we switch on the TV, the debates which happen on politics are something we don't want to listen. The words and all, we are not interested. You know, when I was invited to this seminar by my brother, that's when I really wanted to learn about what you're doing. So that's when I started doing research. That's when, you know, I've seen the videos where you were answering people when they were trying to corner you. Are you with European nations or are you with China? Who would you choose? That's when you told, you know, we are India. We don't want to be on one side. We want to make our own decisions. That's when I realized, oh, a lot has changed. Now it's time we have to start watching politics. So, you know, if that's the case, youth is also very much interested in politics. So, yeah.
Next is Siddhartha. So there are a lot of questions. Just one question, last question regarding US inflation, that will be better.
So please allow me to ask all my questions. I'll make it really brief. Firstly, we don't have an IST watch at the Malé airport. We have Pakistan, Sri Lanka, and Bangladesh. Indians are the biggest tourists. Second, your Europe trip was awesome, your Slovakia speech. Can we have more coverage of these events in social media? The third one is regarding the foreign policy in Iran. It really makes it difficult because of the sanctions to do business. Can we have a better policy where we can import more oil and export more pharmaceuticals? Fourth is that with the US having high inflation and Europe under immense pressure, what does our country look like? I know we don't want to align, but what do we look like? The fifth is, what is the role of... Sorry.
Okay,
Sir,
right. Thank you, Siddhartha. Next is Professor Iqbal, the senior most citizen among the diaspora, sir. Sir. Professor on the retired professor.
Yes, I am Muhammad Iqbal from Visakhapatnam only. I was retired professor of Andhra University for 37 years. I have got a question. Now the External Affairs Minister has a practice to conduct World Hindi Conference outside India, and last time we had in Mauritius. Yes. And this time, whether there is any plan to conduct any World Hindi Conference, yes. And what is the position of Hindi being introduced in being used in UNO? How far that question has come? And they are the two main questions. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And last question, sir. Lady will have a last call. So, Miss Abhinayana, she'll ask a question.
Yes, sounds like.
Good evening, sir.
First and last call should be a ladies. Young lady.
My question is linked to China. Everybody knows it has an expansionary mindset, and with the recent audio leaks, its military audio leaks, when it inevitably attacks Taiwan, is India going to play an active role, or will it be a spectator? Thank you, sir.
Okay. So let me say, it appears that hypothetical questions are very much sort of mood of the day. But really starting with that first one about bureaucracy, honestly, I think it's my very objective judgment that the BJP's political prospects are extremely strong. So don't trouble yourself too much thinking about alternative scenarios. So regarding the bit about the trade routes, what we are doing is there's a big debate about connectivity today in the world because there aren't enough ports. Even look at this part of the world. See, if you see the east coast of India, actually the draft is much deeper than the west coast of India. If you look historically, a lot of our ports were all on the east. The Bay of Bengal used to do much more trade than the Arabian Sea. It was only because of the colonial period that actually the hinterland economy shifted westwards. So we believe that the natural, center of gravity that there should be a kind of correction. So when we speak about Act East, it is not only foreign policy wise. We would like to see, I would say, Eastern India, Southeastern India, Northeastern India, actually Eastern India, because Eastern India needs to develop much more if India is really to play its full role. And in terms of particularly ports and trade, in fact, we have a policy which the Prime Minister gave the name Sagar. It is called Security and Growth for All. You make an acronym out of it. But we support global connectivity initiatives. We work, say, in the Quad, we talk about it. In the G20, we talk about it bilaterally. But we want market-based. We want transparent. We don't want hidden agendas. We don't want opaque financing. So, and I think a large part of the world today is with us because they have seen, and you all know the examples. What happens if you have connectivity projects, which are very expensive, which are very underutilized, which are commercially, non-viable, and then the country which actually entered into that bargain actually takes a big hit. So I think there are dangers out there which everybody today is getting more and more aware about. On your issue about watching politics, etc. I don't want to say anything about these TV shows because otherwise they will turn on you. So I think it's your choice whether you want to watch it or not. I only say that there are different ways. I mean, look, today you look at social media, you look at so many independent information feed that you can actually get. I would, but my point is I would encourage you to take interest. I would encourage, look, eventually, after all, every few years, in some way you have a choice. In some small way, you are also part of what is the final outcome. That choice which you are making that day should be an informed choice. It should be every time as a democratic citizen. You must ask yourself, okay, what am I exercising my choice for? And I feel today, which is why I felt that question would not arise, is that if you today see what is the future of India, which Prime Minister articulates it, symbolizes it, which political party actually captures it, and what has been our past. I think today, in many ways, the choice is between our future and our past. And I think particularly young people whose futures are at stake. I mean, look, we're all people, or another 5 years, 10 years, we will move in. I mean, he's a young man, but the younger people really need to have that sense of future and ask themselves this question today. When they look at our national leaders, when they look at our national parties, when they look at our national agendas, which one of them represents the future? And I think if they get that answer right, and I'm sure they will, I can pretty confidently predict, which direction we are going to go. Now, the spate of questions which I got from the gentleman there, look, who monitors what? That's a very complicated issue. It's not something which you discuss in public. Your social media issue, I already answered. Iran is tricky because of the situation which they are facing, but we have been very clear that we would like to find a way by which sanctions on Iran are lifted and Iranian oil becomes an option for us. Because in the given situation, the fact that Iran's oil is not freely available in the market puts pressure on India. And that is something we hope that other countries will realize. And I think your inflation issue is well taken because a lot of what we are seeing in India is actually the impact of global inflation. The oil prices, the food prices, the commodity prices, you could have fertilizer prices, disruption in trade, insurance problems. So these are worrying because ultimately the average person, you and I, we are going to face it in our daily lives that we are going to find that our lives have become more expensive because of events which have happened very far away. On the World Hindi Conference, yes, we are looking at the possibility. In fact, we have committed to hold the next one in Fiji. I think we're still working on exactly what the dates would be. We would like, because of COVID, it got delayed. We would like very much to do that. In terms of use of Hindi in the UN, we are taking steps. This is not something which will happen. There's a stage-by-stage introduction. I think some of that is already happening. Obviously, we would like to see more of what is happening. And on the last question which the young lady asked, look, I put to you a bigger proposition. I think the world generally and Asia particularly wants to see peace and stability and security so that there is development. And if you ask today a large part of the world, what is your thinking about even what is happening in Ukraine? They are troubled because fighting there is actually impacting people everywhere else in the world. Our cooking oil prices have gone up, our wheat prices have gone up, every time you go to fill your petrol in your tank, the prices have gone up. So any tension, conflict, these are today very major destabilizers of the global economy, and I think most of the world does not want to see that. And most of the world also does not, wants to see stability in this part of the world. And you can see even in India-China relations. I mean, frankly, most of the world understands what is the Indian perspective, because they can see, who is destabilizing and who is actually standing the ground. I think it is something which is very clear. I'm sure that sentiment is something which all of us will take note of. So perhaps on that note.
Dr. Jaishankar, if I may be allowed to ask a question, which I think this is of great interest. Prime Minister Modi ji had changed the entire dynamic of foreign policy by interacting, engaging with Indian diaspora whenever he goes abroad. I think, to the best of my knowledge, this is the first time a prime minister has done that on that scale. So every country he goes, he wows Indians, enthuses them. So I wanted to understand how does that, and also he's the world's most popular leader in all the surveys. So does that make any foreign leader nervous? Does that make anyone uncomfortable? One, because he goes to US, he gets a rock star reception, which a newly elected president finds it difficult to get. So does that make any foreign leader uncomfortable? And does that make your job difficult? Second, how does this soft diplomacy, how does that help Indian diaspora and also our Indian government? Thank you.
No, look, first of all, I had the privilege of actually being with the Prime Minister when Madison Square Garden happened. Okay, and I put it as a completely new concept, actually a kind of a popular diplomacy, which has never been actually practiced in the modern era by anybody at all. And I've seen that thereafter, in different countries and so on. And I must say, each experience, and my last one was in Copenhagen, and by the way, there's one coming up in Munich in about 15 days' time. And I tell you the sentiment, very honestly, of the political leaders who've been there. Most of them are kind of, they are like somewhere between a spectrum between respect, awe, wonder, look, how does this happen? And by the way, they enjoy it when they are there. I remember the Prime Minister of Denmark. She walked into the room in Copenhagen and everybody was shouting, Modi, Modi, Modi. And her name is Mette Frederiksen. So the first few rows, somebody said, Mette, Mette. Then immediately the entire hall moved to that Mette, 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 like Modi, Modi, Modi. And she was like, And she later told me, she said, look, I could not have even imagined that intensity of, sentiment and feeling which I could see in the hall at that time. So, honest answer, most of them envy it.
Like the opposition does here.
So thank you very much, sir. So this has been a reverberating experience, exhilarating experience for each and everyone on the hall. Nobody has left. Even the hunger pangs are hitting. So they all stayed together. I thank on behalf of party that all of you have come and stayed till low it is 10 and 15. So before there are a couple of people who want to felicitate you. We have one felicitation to be done by you, sir. We have amongst us Miss Saitya Pusupati. She got 24th All India rank, sir. We are pride of Vizag, sir. She got 24th rank in the recent civil service examination, and she took inspiration from you. Though she got an option to become an IAS, she opted for IFS. So she want to be a foreign diplomat in the coming years, sir. Yes, sir.
You made the right option. And I tell you, my father was an IAS officer, and many of my family members are IAS. I took that decision then. I have never regretted it, and I think now even they think I took the right decision. So I look forward to seeing you in the foreign ministry. So I'm really so happy.
Sir, no, sir. Okay, one by one. I'll call one by one, sir. Father, okay. Parents. Okay. Thank you, Saicha. Okay. 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 So we have a couple of people who want to felicitate you. Thank you, Saicha and father, mother. We have Rajanya. So he's the first. He was rescued from Wuhan, sir. So he's here to thank you. Thank you, Modi, and yourself, sir. I request Murli, sir. Okay, okay. Oh, right. Next, okay, sir. I'll call. So, from AP Chamber of Commerce, see Sudhir, see Paida Krishnamohan Garu. They want to felicitate you. Just sit, sir. Ninam, sir. Okay, right. Very good comment. Okay. You'll be giving him, huh? No. Okay. Okay. You have to present to us. Okay. Okay. Sorry. Okay. Right. Thank you, sir. So we have Murthy Garu. Right. Mohan Rao Garu. Mohan Rao. రండి ఇచ్చానే రండి ఇలా వచ్చండి రండి వచ్చి విజయ్ మోహన్ ఫ్రమ్ ట్రావెల్స్ ఓకే సార్ రైట్ ఓకే రండి ఫైల్ షీఈ్ అన్ ఎంటర్ప్రెన్యూర్ సార్ రన్నింగ్ వన్ 55